Ladies and welcome to Africa Day, where we will take time talk about that and have this conversation and the other thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She is a CEO as well as executive coach, no other than Miss Carole Stizza. Welcome, Miss Carol, and abstract essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome, Miss Carol. So, did can you tell about yourself that I missed, Miss Carol?
Hmm. I am a Colorado resident, but I was, prior to this, a military spouse. So I moved all over the country, got to travel and meet fantastic people. And I ended up having a career, a varied career, all underneath the HR umbrella. What I found lacking was HR's ability to help leaders. So I transitioned I got my master's in industrial organizational psychology, and I transitioned over to executive leadership coaching because I come at it with an HR lens of how to capitalize on the talent you want and need, the talent you have, and the talent you want to attract. And that ends up concentrating on making people your magic, emotional intelligence, and better conversations.
Better conversation indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Carol. And today let's talk about how to have a better conversations with everyone. So tell us, Miss Carol, it seems we're living in an age of a parallel monologues rather than true dialogue. From your
Mhm.
perspective, what is the single most significant barrier preventing people from having a genuine, connective conversation today on or and how can begin to dismantle it?
So, the biggest barrier is we have been taught not to ask questions from our own education system. And we've heard the word use curiosity, but I don't know if people know the how behind curiosity. They know why to have curiosity, but the how is literally sitting down and being willing to ask questions before you speak your own opinions. And if we've
Mm.
not been taught, if we it's been taught out of us, the asking, we ask lots of questions as kids. You go to school, somebody says don't ask stupid questions, no questions allowed, memorize, regurgitate on a test. And then for some reason they think that when they leave school they're supposed to know all the answers, and they have imposter syndrome because they don't. What no one has reminded teachers and people to teach our growing minds is how to be curious by asking better questions.
To ask better question. I like that, Miss Carol. Many of us enter conversations with hidden agenda to impress,
Mhm.
to win an argument, or to simply wait for our turn to talk. What does it truly mean to shift from broadcasting mindset to receiving one, and how can we cultivate that one as a default setting?
I think people forget that no one wants to hear from us first. They don't care yet. So
Yes.
while we want to emote out into the world an opinion or thought, you have to make sure it's going to land where you want it to. And the only way to know if what you have to offer will land is to ask questions about where the other person is.
Hmm. Interesting, Miss Carol. The philosopher Paul Grice the concept of conversational maxims. One of
Mhm.
the one of which is to be relevant. But in our effort to be relevant, we often interrupt or steer the conversation back to ourselves. How can we better manage the impulse to relate everything back to our experiences and instead keep the focus on other person's world?
Well, we as humans have a hard time focusing on anybody else but ourselves. So let's just acknowledge that. It's an interesting hard challenge to care about other people and still be genuine. But when someone's in your presence, it's a really good mindset to accept that may be there for your benefit. You may learn something, you may have a connection, but you'll never know unless you take the time to really get to know them or stop and be present and wonder what this exchange can do for both of you. So, a good conversation is where both people get to offer an exchange, they feel seen, they feel heard, and they get to ask of the other person, which is a volley. It's not tit for tat, you say something, I say something. It's listening to understand, ask questions until you know where you fit. There are quite a few people who can take any topic and they're two steps away from bringing it around to themselves. No one enjoys that conversation. They see it coming. The person talking feels important. But if you have the ability to go and ask somebody enough questions to get to know something about them that connects you both, it allows you to understand where your input will fit in the conversation and be welcome so that you both feel seen, you both feel heard, and you both feel valued. And I think we've forgotten that that's really important for everyone. We've forgotten that what we need is the same thing everybody else needs. So, how do we create win win conversations? How do we let everybody save face and come out of the conversation feeling valued and heard and embraced? Even if the political opinions are opposite, there are ways to have conversations where both parties feel heard and go, okay, I agree to disagree, but I feel heard. It's a it's an intentional effort by people who want to be valued by other people. In order to be valued, you have to value the other person first.
Intentional effort for sure. And let's talk about the power of questions. Beyond the standard, how are you? What types of questions act as a key to unlock deeper level of understanding and storytelling in a conversation?
The best the best questions that I've found are welcome by other people is to ask easy to answer questions, which sounds not intuitive. So people have also often said ask open-ended questions. That's not helpful. Ask things like, what was your favorite show as a child? What is the thing you like the most? What do you dislike the most? If you can bring it to a point, their brain can easily answer it. Doesn't take a lot of effort. But if you say, what are your top three? Or what do you think about? If it's too vague, it becomes then a volley of, well, what should I offer? What would they value? Make the questions easy enough for the other person to answer them successfully. And even if it's one they have to think about, they'll appreciate the question because it made them think. We're all wanting a thought exercise when we have conversations. So these questions that bring it to a point are helpful.
Yes. Questions that are helpful, people. Please ask them. So, silence can feel uncomfortable in a conversation, often leading us to rush in, fill the void. But is there a hidden power in allowing for process and silences? How can we become more comfortable with quiet moments and use them to deepen a discussion rather than derail it?
Mm. I think the most current example of how silence can work is in the show The Residents by Shonda Rhimes, where the detective watches people walk in, says nothing. They sit down and they just can't stand it. Right? It's a great play on
Yes.
people's discomfort with silence. I think one of the underlying foundations of being comfortable with silence is being okay with who you are. That what you have to offer in that moment is enough. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be expertise, doesn't have to be anything else, but it's enough. You're where you are for a reason. Silence is that moment where you can just appreciate what is. But to your point, when a conversation has a lull, some people rush to fill it. They're uncomfortable with the lack of noise. They think that words are required because there is silence. And that's not always the case. So when I have a moment of silence with somebody and we sit there, I said, "Are you uncomfortable with the silence?" And they'll say yes or no. And just address it. It's okay. It is a thing, but you don't have to cover it up.
Indeed. Miss Carol, in your experience, what is the most underrated but incredibly effective listening skill that people often overlook? Is it reading body language, hearing the emotion behind the words, or perhaps something else entirely?
Hmm. When you read body language, you attach your own stories to their body language. So it may not be accurate. When you are reading emotions behind words, you're still attaching your own version of what that emotion might be or feel like. So I have found that one of the most effective ways to listen is to literally be present and don't make any assumptions that you know what they're feeling, that you know where they've been, but simply to, if it's somebody in need, let's say it's somebody that's not happy, or they are bringing in maybe negative energy, or they're talking and they just sound sad. You don't even have to name the emotion. It's their emotion, it's not yours to take. So avoid naming the emotion or second guessing. Just ask them, "How can I support you? You sound down. I could be wrong, but if you are down, how can I support you?" Be okay with offering support without assuming that you've read them right, because we get into a lot of trouble when we just make all these assumptions based on our own stories in our own head.
Hmm, interesting. Miss Carol, we often think of conversations as a verbal, but so much is communicated non-verbally. How can we become more attuned to unspoken language of conversation, to tone, the posture, the glance, to truly understand what someone is saying beneath their words?
We've all heard the recommendation to mimic the person you're listening to, their body language. If they cross their arms, cross your arms. You don't have to be anybody you're not. One of the things that I find breaks down any variables is look them in the eye while they're talking. Just be brave enough to look people in the eye while you're listening. That's all it takes.
Okay, conversation, Miss Carol, often falter when emotions run high or falter, sorry. What are your strategies for navigating a conversations when you are the other person become defensive, angry, or upset without allowing the dialogue to completely break down?
Right. Well, interestingly enough, in neuroscience research, one of the things I found very freeing was the recognition that when someone is upset, they're not upset at you. It may feel like they're upset at you, they're not. They're projecting onto you because something about something is really upsetting them. And you can put all the friction emotions underneath the umbrella of frustration. So often when people project out, they bite your head off, they're angry, they're stomping around. They're they're trying to get rid of the negative emotions. There's no place in our brains for negative emotions. We don't recognize the word not. We don't we don't recognize the word no. I mean, we just want to get rid of it. So we have a bad habit of projecting it on the other person. If you are the other person, the smartest strategy and thing you can do is just hold your tongue for a few minutes and wait for that moment. And it's there when they have a pause between the steam engines going and say, look, it is clear that something's frustrating you. Could be me, but something's really frustrating you. What is frustrating you the most? And when you ask that question, it allows them to stop and get to the heart of what's really upsetting them. It could have been something that happened yesterday at them at work, and now little things have piled onto it and they just blew up at home. But when you can give them the grace to know that it may have nothing to do with you, ask them, what's frustrating you the most? Here's the interesting thing that happens next. They can't talk about their feeling and feel the feeling at the same time. So if they choose to talk about it, it automatically reduces the emotional energy they were emoting before. That's my strategy.
Miss Carol, as a CEO and executive coach as well as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I think the long term goals is to put something out in the world that is relevant for anybody who puts their hands on it. I mean, I named my company Relevant Insight because for many years as a working mom, you recognize how often it is that people are frustrated because they just don't know how to be more relevant at work, including kids at home. They want to be relevant at home. But that's the long term goal. The short term goal is to really get messages out to people that there are better ways to have conversations. There are better ways to have conversations that breed and deepen good relationships. And for the leaders out there who need to pay attention to the people, asking them questions humanizes the interaction. And I would really like to be able to help more leaders around the world be phenomenal.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Carol, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there want to be like you?
Mm. The next person you meet, in whatever form, at the grocery store, at work, take a moment and ask them a good question to get to know them. That's it. Just start there. Start where you are. Start with the person in front of you.
Definitely, and thank you for that advice, Miss Carol. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Mm. One of the most unique books I've ever read was called Curiosity by a professor who is researching anxiety. And they found that the more research they did on children with anxiety, if they asked them about something outside of themselves, it automatically reduced their anxiety. So there's value in asking questions and getting to know about people outside of your head because it has a medicinal quality and a community connection is a big one.
Yes, for sure. Big one. And thank you for that recommended book, Miss Carol. And tell us, storytelling is a core part of human connection. How can we become better at telling our own stories in a conversation? Not in a long
Hmm.
winded way, but in a manner that is engaging, relevant,
Hmm.
and invites the other person to share in return.
Oh, this is a skill I keep trying to master. But the best storytellers I've observed, um, they start by putting you where the story happens. They'll say, my uncle was a pilot in World War II, and every pilot story will start with the thumbs crossed and the hands going, and there we were, right, flying above. and it puts you there. So a good storyteller will start off by grabbing your attention by putting you in the setting. I just woke up, I just spilled coffee on me, I ran to the door, it was raining. Whatever it is, that's where a good story starts because everybody gets pulled in. When you
Yes.
can pull people in and start a story, they don't want to hear about you yet. They want to hear about the other people in the story. They want to feel relatable to the story. So I walked in the door, spilled my coffee. The register person noticed there was a client, there's a line long, just painting the scene and then describing really what the challenge was. Here was the problem. Oh my gosh, here's everything that happened to get the solution. Here was the solution, but always end by, and you know what that taught me, like what you learned. You know what I learned in that story? You know what it taught me? You know what happened? You know what I think of today? Bring it back to present day. And people will like the journey. Short or long, that's how the good storytellers keep you engaged.
Yes, definitely. Miss Carol, imagine conversation as a shared journey rather than an exchange of data. What is one small change we can make tomorrow to transform our transactional chats into a moment of genuine, it brief human connection?
When you are in a conversation and you feel as if there's just, I did this and I did this exchanging, take a moment and ask the person how they felt when they were doing it. Change the direction of the conversation by bringing in feelings or emotions, or ask who was affected by that, or what did you like the most about that moment. Alter the journey trajectory, and it will deepen the conversation.
Miss Carol, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Low 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review, Music 101 and fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Carol, if you could instill one fundamental principle about conversation into every young person, a principle that would serve them in every relationship and endeavor for the rest of their life, what would it be that?
It's a tall order, but I think the first thing that came to mind was don't make any assumptions that you know anything about the other person you're talking to. Go new into every conversation, including the people you've known all your life. You'll enjoy the ride a lot more.
Definitely, you will enjoy, people. Miss Carole Stizza. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And looking forward for our next episode on Book 101 Review. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your books, or whatever projects that you're doing right now? Miss Carol, can you please
Yes,
invite our listeners?
absolutely. Definitely come and listen to, he's got a podcast for every interest, which is amazing. So
Yes,
definitely come and bring along more listeners every day.
definitely. People, let's support Miss Carol Stizza because if you support her for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering coaching for sure, and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Carol, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.